evening, everyone, and welcome to the Undisputed Heavyweight Champion of the World show made for the fans by a fan. I'm your host, as always, Richard Team, and this is The Fan Show. Thank you all for tuning in. I tell you, apologies in advance. We're going to try this the best way that we can, but this is another one of those rare occasions, although it seems like it happens more and more frequently, that you kind of just have to take a step back for a minute and look at the bigger picture. For those of you that have not seen it yet, there was another school shooting today in Florida. 17 people, as of right now, are confirmed dead. Of course, a lot of this transpired just over an hour ago. I was actually on my way home when I opened Twitter and saw the breaking news. And, you know, I was joking around a couple of weeks ago about, you know, what happens faster, a woman turning from happy to mad, or literally any post turning into a political argument or debate. And I just feel like there's a lot of things that need to be discussed, but to turn something like this into politics is really just unnecessary and a waste of energy. The last school shooting that I talked about and addressed was the one that happened right here in the backyard of Spokane, Freeman High School, and it was a very tragic day. And all of these are very tragic days, and we've kind of become numb to them because they seem to happen more and more. And I feel like the issue really shouldn't be what's being used to cause these, but why they're happening. I mean, I thought about it today on the way home. I had a good half-hour drive home, and I remember growing up in a time that Columbine had happened. It happened when I was, I think, in 6th grade, and it was one of the worst things that we had ever experienced. Of course, this is pre-9/11, so it was one of the worst things that we had ever experienced in our country, in our culture, and so many, there was so much emphasis on us as students because, it was like, that could have been us. It could have been us as students. What kind of message are we sending to each other? Just how bad is bullying? So on and so forth. I also grew up in a time where, because I live in the Pacific Northwest and we do a lot of outdoorsy stuff, camping, hunting, fishing, my dad had a gun rack in his truck. I think he probably still does. And he used to carry his guns around in the gun rack when he came and picked me up from school. And nobody batted an eye because it was like, that's the way that life was up here, and for a lot of places in the U.S., that's the way life is there, but not anymore. We've changed a lot. My mom is a teacher at a local elementary school, and I went to visit her. I had to buzz myself in like one of those New York apartments where you push the buzzer and they ask who's this and what your purpose is. It blew my mind. And there's schools with metal detectors and so on. But, I grew up hunting with my dad, and I had 2 rifles. I had a 30-30 and a 257. Then I had a couple of shotguns, a 410. That was my first ever gun, single shot, and a 20 gauge pump shotgun, and then a couple of handguns, a six shot pistol. But even though I used them for what their purpose was to be used, and I knew how to use them well, I was bullied my whole life. I was the smallest kid in my class, all of grade school, middle school, and then I finally found sort of my family, my niche with band. And even though I didn't hit my growth spurt until probably late sophomore year, things weren't easy growing up. Like, I had numerous bullies. It wasn't always just one. There were a few that stand out from the rest, don't get me wrong, but kids are ruthless. They're relentless. Like, what is happening at home that these kids feel that they need to come to school and just make someone else's life miserable? And then on the flip side, did I want revenge on my bullies? Of course I did. Who doesn't want to make them pay for the pain that they have caused you? I mean, that's just human nature. You want to see them feel the way that they've made you feel. But I never once thought about bringing a gun to school. It was just something that was so far out of my mind, even with what had happened at Columbine, that the two never even came close to crossing paths. Like, I wanted to meet them on the playground after school, after training, at like karate or boxing, and just, get into one of those old-fashioned fist fights and give them a good solid one across the right cheek. That was my version of revenge. Like, yeah, you'll shove me in the lockers, you'll pick on me, what now? And you tip the scales back into your favor. You level the playing field. But a school shooting, I don't understand. I want to, so that I can help in whatever way that I can to prevent something like this from happening again. But at the same time, I don't know if I really want to understand, because to me, that's a depth of the mind that not many venture to. And those that do, well, obviously you see what happens. And then maybe it's something that can't be understood. Maybe there's something that these people that do this, just there's a wire that's crossed the wrong way, something happened, something so traumatic growing up, or some signal that got sent that was received the wrong way that told them that this is the solution to my problem. This is the cure for my suffering. And if there's bystanders that are hurt or even killed in the action of everything, well, then that's a small price to pay for me settling the score with these people. And it doesn't make sense to me. I can't wrap my head around why this has become almost the norm, and the norm for what will make, the pain go away, what will make things right. And I think that things start at home. Like, if you want to have a political debate and an argument about gun control, go for it. But don't use times like this to start it, because there's a bigger picture here. I'm trying to find the words, and I'm having a hard time because I'm still just so baffled by people's reactions to things and what they feel is necessary to discuss, and why they get into the arguments that they do. But, we're people, and we should know better, and we should know by now that it's not the tool, it's the cause. Like, what causes a person to wake up one morning, or even plan out for weeks, months, that this is going to be how I get my revenge. This is going to be how I go down in history, or how I'm made famous. Because you got to think that that's part of it too. We glorify people on the wrong end of society. We really do. And it's tragic. As media, I hate days like today. I really do, because I go to open Twitter, and I hit the little magnifying glass. I'm like, what's trending now? School shooting in Florida. You click like, what? You want the details. And I realize that the media provides those details, but beyond the details, they take it too far. Cameras in the faces of kids that have just experienced probably what will be the worst day of their entire life. And they experienced it at the age of 13, 14. They watched their friends die beside them. And you want to throw a camera and a microphone in their face to get their reaction and their feeling. It's disgusting. It really is. And that's media. That's today's media. And I hate days like today, because I am media. But when I was at the United Bowl Championship a couple of seasons ago, when I was following just the Spokane Empire, not even the whole league, just the Empire, and they lost, I didn't go and shove my tape recorder or my voice note right into someone's face and go, how do you feel right now? How do you think they feel? So for news crews to troll, and that's what they're doing, to troll outside of a school after a shooting, after a tragic moment like that, it's so disgusting. And that's really the only word that I think is fitting enough and describes best how I feel when I'm sweeping through social media, see these pictures of sobbing kids and crying parents. I mean, there was a video that was shared by a student that's in one of the rooms, and they did it on their Snapchat or whatever, and when SWAT bursts in to clear them, they asked for them to put their hand up. You can see trembling hands in the air in this back corner of a classroom behind stacked desks, and it's just, get the cameras out of there. There is no need whatsoever beyond the who, what, where, when, why to go and to ruin even more of what has already been a ruined day, ruined experience for these kids. It's not right to me, and I hate that. So I know that we try to keep it light and we try to keep it fun here on the Fan Show, but there's certain events that happen that I simply can't ignore. And, you know, for all of you listening, I want to communicate my feelings about it very clearly. That there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger issue, and it doesn't start with the gun. It starts for why did they think that that was their only solution? Why did they go in thinking that was their last resort, and that this is the only way that I'm going to pay back those that have made me hurt and suffer? Because as a kid that grew up being bullied, that had guns, that used guns regularly throughout the year, never crossed my mind. Not once. Life is so precious, and we've forgotten that somewhere. So I don't know if it's the world today, and it's just something that we have to take it for what it is and adjust accordingly, or if there's any way that we can reverse some of this damage, because it's got to stop. And you can't just take all the guns off the shelves and think, yeah, that'll be how, because there's other means. Where there's a will, there's a way, but why are people willing to do this? That's the bigger question, and that's the question I think everyone should ask themselves when they get home tonight and hug their kids, is that you know that all life is precious and that this is never the solution. It's never no one has a right to take another life unless you're defending yourself or you're in the military or you're a police officer. There's not a good enough reason to take an innocent life. There's not. So we're going to skip headlines. We're going to go and get to our first guest, but I needed to get that out and off my chest because things like this weigh, I think, more heavily on me now than they used to, just because I get the opportunity to talk to whoever's listening out there. That don't make this a petty argument. Don't make this some political debate. Go home, hug and kiss your kids, sit down with them, and make sure that they understand that life is precious and that this is never the answer. This is never the solution. I don't ever want to open my phone and see about another mass shooting again, but I'm sure that it'll happen again. It's only February, and this has been like one of 8, but that's the world that we live in. So we're going to officially switch gears now, go to a commercial break. I'm going to bring on Cody Barber, kicker of the Iowa Barnstormers, first. Then we've got Herbert Gonzales making his debut. He's a Cedar Rapids Titan. We're going to try to enjoy what we can of this Valentine's Day. So don't go anywhere. We've got more of the Fan Show coming up after this.
This is The Sheet.
Gets me all revved up. My face is now red. My ears are just freaking boiling.
He's so raw that Scott hates him.
Yeah, he had 51 touchdowns. 4,900 total yards.
I know y'all like that, but I got to run. And only in Alabama that could happen, I have to say.
They're so good, man. They would win the Big Ten if they were in the Big Ten. You could be doing something vision-based in front of you and reach down and grab a handful of insane goodness.
Give it to him. Kudos. I'm clapping like a golfer. Very good, Johnny. I'm proud of you.
Wow. You guys agree on something again? I'm very impressed. You ever had a bad week? You know, just you walk outside, step in a puddle, like right when you walk outside. I mean, how's there a puddle right outside your house? Or you stand on the curb and somebody drives by and splashes water up on you? Or it's just raining on you, not anyone else?
I will tell you, before you go any further, I cannot hear Chad when he speaks.
Good. Here, listen to the sheet, man. I don't really know what we're doing.
Every Saturday morning, 8 to 10 a.m. right here on WBLZ Sports.
Whether it be your industrial, commercial, or residential needs, Gen Service is the electrical contractor for you. The Gen Service team has the expertise, commitment, and educational years to help you solve all your electrical concerns. They have you in their best interest with helpful suggestions to accommodate your every want. Give them a call, no matter the size of the job, at 740-438-7173. Mention WBLZ Sports, and you'll get a discount. That's Gen Service, 740-438-7173.
This is Nick Ciccarelli, the mad scientist of sports. Join me and Dr. D, Derek Jones, live every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific, for the Mad Scientist Sports Lab. The big intellect, the experiments on the chalkboard, and the guest subjects will be rolling in. Mad Scientist Sports Lab, only on WBLZ Sports, where we got balls.
Doug Peffer painting and pressure washing. He has over 30 years of painting experience. He's interior, exterior, commercial or residential, Doug Peffer covers it all. Is your house looking ugh? We'll call on Doug. Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing, 404-966-3361. Mention WBLZ Sports and get a special We've Got Balls discount. That's Doug Peffer Painting and Pressure Washing, 404-966-3361.
Check out Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL legends live on. We bring you 5 NFL legends every week, sharing their stories and insights, plus our spotlight on the positive. Hear which players are doing great things in their communities. Now on WBLZ Sports Talk Radio and WBLZSports.com.
All right, we are back, and joining me is, well, it's a really funny story, actually, how we met, but I'll get to that after the introduction. He's one of the best kickers I know, and that's saying something considering I live so close to Seattle where they have some kicking problems of their own. It is the Iowa Barnstormers, Cody Barber. How you doing, Cody?
I'm doing good, man.
And I'm glad to have you on. It's been a while, but this is like your first official appearance as far as, player interview before the season starts. But the funny story about how you and I met. So I was doing last year's tour, and one of the sort of extra stops was the Bloomington Edge because I knew Coach Amir Ishmael, and it wasn't like an official stop on the tour because it was CIF and not IFL, but I figured, hey, I'm going to be in the area, so I might as well. So went there. I was part of your guys' ninth man. It was a lot of fun. And I get there, and I'm looking around, and the players, you guys start to run out onto the field, and I'm looking around. I'm doing a live video, and all of a sudden, here comes this guy up to me, and he's got this one eye, and I'm looking at him, and he says to me, hey, man, you better get an interview with me after this. And I was like, okay, and he trots off, and I look at Amir and I go, that's not your quarterback, is it? He's like, it's our kicker. I said, holy crap, what? He's like, yeah, he's blind in one eye, but hey, just what? You made like the game-winning kick to that game, so I've never been more happy to have my foot put in my mouth.
That's awesome.
But it's you got picked up by the Barnstormers late last season for their postseason push. I was really happy for you because it's a good home to have. They're a good family there in Iowa, and so this will be your first full season with them, at least hopefully, pending any freak accidents or occurrences. But great article on you by Connor and Last Word on Sports. So how's everything been for you since last year? I mean, you went from one team to another late in the season. You sort of fell in love with the team and the fans. Like how have things been now that you're kind of official in Iowa?
They've been great, man. I love it over here in Des Moines. From the fans to the coaching staff to the front office, everything about this organization is just great.
So as far as your particular handicap, I guess if you call it that, but you are blind in one eye and you're a kicker, which some people would say, I don't know if that makes any sense. But, there's a lot of things that people tend to overlook as far as the little details of certain professions and why some things that may appear kind of outside of the box would work the best. Is depth perception overrated when it comes to kicking? Because all you're trying to do is get it between two posts.
Yeah, and depth perception had a big role in it at first. I had to get used to it, even in driving and everyday life at that too. Sometimes I judge things a little bit further than they really are or a little bit closer than they really are. So it took some getting used to, but I never used any excuses, and I just kept working and getting better at it.
So when you line up, like what was the routine like once you finally figured out what you were going to have to adjust for yourself?
I watched a lot of other kickers do what they did, and then I took some certain tidbits from each kicker and kind of used them to fit my kicking style. So it just took a little bit of getting used to, like I said, but through the way I've never used it as an excuse. You know, it gets hard at times, but I just keep working. Some days are better than others.
Is there ever a time when you're on the field that is maybe a bit more difficult than another? Like, is it something, because I know hash marks are huge in the kicking game. They want to be either, certain kickers have a preference left side or right side. Sometimes you can get set up right down the middle, but is there any, like, do you have a preference like that, or is it once you're pretty much past, you know, the whole how far it is that you've kind of got your routine on lock?
Yeah, no doubt. I don't have a preference or a favorite side of the field. In an indoor game, it works out for the kicker and the kicking team because you get to pick. If you are a right hash kicker that likes to kick from there, you get the ball set up on the right hash. Me personally, I like it just in the middle of the field. And my thing is just keeping my head down and following through and using my technique. And when I do that, I'm pretty accurate.
So when you kick, your follow-through motion, which is a lot like golfers in their swing, everybody says for golfing, you know, keep your head down, your eye on the ball when you swing, and then you can pick your head up once you've made contact. With you, is it the same thing? Like you've got your head down the whole way through, and then you don't even look up until you know, the ball's pretty much all the way there?
Yeah, no doubt. Like Coach Wooten always tells me, keep your head down. Brady will tell you if it's good or not. You don't need to worry about that. So that's my thing, is just keeping my head down and following through. And when I do that, like I said, I'm very accurate, even in the indoor game where the uprights are only 10 feet wide.
Yeah, it's something that I've talked with Craig Peterson a lot about, how you guys, I don't know how more of you don't get picked up from that indoor game, because it's not, for me, it goes so far beyond the elements, because there's plenty of indoor teams out there. And I mean, if you're a team in like the NFC North or the NFC South, more than half your games are going to be played indoor. So if I'm looking around and I see that there's a guy that is kicking through goalposts that are half the size of NFL's, and he's doing it with ease, and there's not like a lot of really close calls, I'm giving you a phone call. I'm going to say, hey, let's do this in an open field and see how you do with goalposts twice that wide. It seems like that's kind of, you know, a gimme, but you guys don't get a whole lot of phone calls, and he says a lot of it is politics. What's your feelings on that?
Yeah, you know, I say the same thing. You know, if a guy can kick 53-yard field goal through 10-foot goalposts, you know, I figure that would get you some looks, at least, you know, a tryout, a workout, something with CFL, NFL. But, you know, it doesn't happen too much. And that's crazy you brought up Craig, because that's, like I said, when I took little tidbits from different kickers, I took a couple of different things from Craig, and it helped me tremendously because we work with the same kicking coach. So, I owe him a lot in my success, too, of being a better kicker.
Yeah, and that's great. I always appreciate you and Craig's input when it comes to kicking, which is something that, you know, that you guys catch a lot of grief, and I get it, because on the professional, you know, scale of everything, it's that you literally have one job to do, and if you're not doing that job, then you know, it's kind of like with any other profession. If you're not doing your job, why do you still have one? But, you know, there's a lot that goes into kicking, and I wanted to touch base with you on a couple of those things, because I think of kicking, and there's not really a whole lot that I can relate it to in the world of football, which I think is one of the more fascinating things about that position. Because, yeah, you can say with quarterbacks, they have their own throwing motion, but there's throwing motions that work better than others. And so for the most part, a lot of quarterbacks will throw the same way, if not a similar way. But when you talk about baseball and golf, a lot of guys have very different swings. And that's encouraged, because you got to find out what works for you. And it's not just the motion itself, but it's like how far you're choked up on the bat, you know, where's your elbow height. And there's things that coaches will do to tell you, you know, to help improve if they think that maybe your elbow's too high or that you're choked up too much. But for kicking, I know guys that kick off the toe, off the top of their foot, kick barefoot, kick with boots, with cleats, tennis shoes. So how do you, as a kicker, when you get into kicking, find out what is working for you? Like, how do you discover what Cody Barber's style of kicking is?
It's a lot of trial and error, man. Like I said, I took little tidbits from each kicker. Some things didn't work right away. Some things I could tell a difference right away. Like, before I was hitting the ball with the wrong part of my foot, I met my kicking coach, Sam Watts. and he broke down everything from the littlest details to the bigger things. And after that, it was just easy to me. Now I got the same routine every time. And yeah, I'm not like with the depth perception. I said I might get some different shots on the ball with my foot, but for the most part, every single time I hit it is like the same way.
Wow. And about like how many practices, how many weeks does it take to finally get your style down?
I couldn't even tell you how many weeks, to be honest with you, but it takes a while usually to get that, consistent kick to where it's good every time. And then even in indoor, you're not going to be perfect in indoor. It's just not not possible, really. I've never seen somebody go 100% on field goals. I don't even think I've seen somebody go 100% on PATs in the indoor game. So, it's about trial and error, and if you miss one of them, coming back and hitting the next ball better than you hit the last one.
What's the craziest thing you ever tried when you were a kicker as far as finding your style of how you kick?
I don't think there's too many crazy things. I mean, I've switched up my steps a little bit, which, to some people might not seem like a big deal, but, going from 3 steps back to 4 steps back, just little stuff like that.
I want to see a guy that kicks with a boot that starts his stance like he's tuning up for Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music. I want to see that kicker. Because I would pay tickets just to see that kicker.
that would be funny to see. That would definitely sell some tickets, I think.
Because wasn't there a kicker for, I believe it was Tampa Bay, this was years ago, because EA Sports was so into that, if it's in the game, it's in the game. And one of the video clips that they had in the introduction or between loading screens was a kicker who kicked with a snow boot, like one that you would buy up in like Minnesota that's got the furry, inline, and then it's got that big waterproof base down there. And I think it was Tampa Bay, but he would kick with a full-fledged boot.
That's crazy. I mean, maybe it was a toe poker, because I've seen some guys like that can kick with their toe. They can really get a good piece of the ball, too, and kick it pretty far. But then there's other kicks that they kick that were just, straight right or straight left. So it was a hit or miss with them. But if they got that toe poke perfect, that ball would go really far.
So you said toe poker. You guys have your own slang for each other in the kicking world?
I mean, you got kind of like you got a toe poker and a regular guy like me and Craig and all the guys that kick with the soccer style or toe poker.
Gotcha. Well, one thing that I wanted to know as far as the whole kicking thing goes, was there ever a time that you thought that that this wasn't the position for you, like maybe before you tried a few other different things? Because obviously it does take a little bit of time and tweaking to find your rhythm, I guess, for kicking. But was there ever a time where you were just like, man, I can't figure this out?
I mean, there was times where I got down on myself and I would be hard on myself, but I knew that I would get through it and be able to figure out how to get better day by day. But I also played a little receiver. But then again, at the end of the day, I didn't really like getting hit, so I knew
Well, if you didn't like getting hit, you should have become a quarterback in the NFL. They never get hit anymore.
All right.
In the NFL, or in football in general, there's so much emphasis, and a lot of people don't really appreciate this aspect of the game. But you talk to any coach, any player, and this is probably one of the most important factors of the game as far as the success on offense, and that's the center-quarterback exchange. The moment that ball is hiked from the center into the quarterback's hands, if you do that successfully, then you have a great relationship, great rapport, and you're going to have, you're going to just have to worry about the other stuff. How important in your world is not necessarily the center to holder exchange, but just the holder getting that ball down just right for you?
That's a big part in the special teams game, because if you don't get it to the holder and he don't get it down, you don't get to kick it. So that's a big part of it. And here in Iowa, I like my holder tremendously. Brady Rowland is, he's not only a great receiver, but he's actually a great holder too. So, you don't get too much admiring for a holder, but he's really good at what he does.
So if I have Brady Rowland on the show later, not later tonight, but like next week, would it be accurate if I said, so I hear that you're the best at holding Cody's balls?
Yeah, it might sound kind of strange, but I think he'll agree.
You think he'll agree? I think he'll probably hang up on me and be like, man, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, he might do that.
I think Brady's great, but that's good that you've got a guy there that you trust, especially one that'll tell you if you made or missed it. Of course, you can probably hear the reaction from the crowd depending on if you're at home or away. Has he ever told you the opposite of what happened? Like, oh, sorry, man, you missed, like just to mess with you?
No, he hasn't. But we only got one game together so far, and we went 2 for 2. So he didn't have so much time to mess with me or give me crap. But we'll see this year. Maybe he'll mess with me a little bit. I know BJ too. BJ, our long snapper, he's really good at what he does for not being a long snapper. He's really good, so that's why I get to work with both of them, and we worked last year, so we got a little bit of a resume building to work on for this year too.
Well, it's a long season. A lot can happen. Maybe I'll tell him that just for kicks, just for me, that he needs to mess with you one game. Like, not just once, but like the whole game.
All right, one game's fine with me.
Well, we haven't had a player of the game, a kicker yet, but then again, the player of the game is a very young thing here with the Fan Show. We just introduced it last year, and there was only about a dozen times that we had a player of the game. So if there's a kicker out there that can do it, I think it's probably going to be you. But what's life been like in Iowa as a Barnstormer? Like, how excited are you for the upcoming season?
Oh man, I'm super excited. I think we have a great group of guys around here that is going to make some noise again. Last year they went 13-3 and had a great season. Coach Wooten and the staff, I think they're going to have us right there again. So I'm excited for it.
All right, man. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be on the show this evening and talking some kicking. I feel like we went into a lot of details about kicking, but that's all right. I'm smarter now about the kicking position, and that's all right by me. But I will be in Iowa to see some Barnstormer football next month, the 10th to be exact, your guys' home opener against the Arizona Rattlers. How exciting is that game for you as this is your first full season and to open up against the defending champs?
It's very exciting, man. Arizona always has a good team from their AFL days to now. So I'm excited for that, not only because they're a good team, but I'm from Arizona, so I've always known about the Rattlers. I went to an open tryout of theirs, actually the same open tryout that they signed their kicker that they have now. So I know all about the Rattlers, and it's going to be fun to get to play against them.
All right, man. Well, I won't keep you any longer, but hey, you take care of yourself. Happy Valentine's Day, however you celebrate. But I encourage people to wait till tomorrow and celebrate on Valentine's Day when you can get all the chocolate and candy you want for half price.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I appreciate you having me, man. Go Barnstormers.
All right, you take care and have a good night, my friend.
You too.
All right, that was Cody Barber, kicker of the Iowa Barnstormers. I never really thought about kicking that much until you're talking with a kicker and you're like, there's a lot I don't know about this position. So I was very curious to see just what kind of kicker he was and how you go about discovering that. Because for me, you watch a movie like a Happy Gilmore and just how much he goes in and just wrecks the game of golf in a good way. He doesn't have your typical swing. He doesn't dress the way that golfers do. And so I'm thinking like of all the different positions in sports, like who would be the one that could come in and sort of cause that kind of noise? Because every other position in football, you kind of, you do what you're instructed to do, because if you don't, it's either a penalty or your coach is going to scream at you, because that's just not how it's done. But for kicking, I feel like they maybe have a bit more of like a loose feel, like however you're going to stand, just make the kick. You could go back there and do a 30-second dance routine, just as long as, with that 40-second clock, you make sure that the ball's on the ground and through the air before time runs out. I want to see someone warming up or tuning up the band like Shawn Michaels for his sweet chin music and then just kick the hell out of that thing. That's what I want to see. So if you're a kicker and you're listening and you want to change the game, make sure that you make it, but try that. I want to see it. Send me a YouTube video, and I'll share the crap out of it, because that would be the most exciting thing ever. So we're going to go to another commercial break, bring on my next guest. Hopefully he's ready, Herbert Gonzales of the Cedar Rapids Titans. So don't go anywhere. We've got a little more of the Fan Show coming up after this. You're listening to the Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, But here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's the F.A.N. Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It's like that scene in The Simpsons. Like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right?
Yeah.
And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com, or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, I am back and guestless at the moment, just because he may not be out of his meeting with the team just yet. He said that he had a meeting at the start of the show, not at the start of the show, but like when I told him this is when I go live, he's like, oh yeah, I've got a team meeting then, but it shouldn't take more than about 30 minutes, so maybe he got tied up. I don't know. We got 20 minutes here, though, left on the F.A.N. Show, so plenty of time for Herbert to call in and discuss some Cedar Rapids football. I'm excited to talk to him after talking with Marshall Hart last night. We joked around about Coach Marvin Jones, and so I want to get a new player's perspective. He's only been there for a few days, I think, because of the dispersal draft they had after the whole legal issue with the West Michigan Ironmen and the Bloomington Edge. So, but we've beaten that drum, and my thoughts on that very clear. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought that the CIF was more in the wrong than the IFL. Just a lot of it was timing. You know, the IFL said either play for us or not at all to Sioux Falls and Wichita Falls back in like November, September, and so those teams, one folded and the other came back, and then CIF with like 2 months to go until kickoff, you're not going to play at all. So there was no ultimatum. It was simply, we don't want you to play at all, and that I don't think is fair. So maybe Herbert will have some thoughts on that as well. But I'd really rather not get into that as much as I can. And I realize in saying that I just spent like 2 minutes discussing my thoughts on that very topic. But it's time to put it behind us. He was a member of the dispersal draft, so maybe we'll get just final thoughts from him. I know that there's few people out there that want to come on the show and sort of air out their feelings and clear the air, set the record straight, so on and so forth. So we'll see what happens. But if it gets to where the season starts or whatever, you know, I'm kind of trying to put it behind me, just because it doesn't do the tour or the show any good to keep bringing up stuff that at this point it's done, it's over with, and we're moving on. Everybody's moving on, the league and everything. As far as any headlines in the world of sports or breaking news, let's see if there was any that came out of today. Oh, that's what I forgot to mention, because we were on a serious note earlier. So last night I go off on that whole thing about the Winter Olympics and how it's so hard for me to get into them because the schedule is so confusing and it's hard to figure out like when to tune in and what events or what day, because it's just, to me it feels like it's chaos. But I said the one thing I would want to watch is snowboarding, particularly the freestyle or the half pipe, because Shaun White, and sure enough, I end the show and I find out that Shaun White made history last night with his performance in the half pipe, a score of 97. That's incredible. This is a guy who I didn't think that there was somebody in the world better than him at what he did, and that's really saying something, because I realize that when it comes to the scale of things, you know, the different levels of how things are viewed, you know, we can look at U.S. soccer and be like, man, this team is so good. I think they're the best in the world. But to us, because of our sample size being only other U.S. soccer teams, that judgment is kind of flawed, because soccer is played all over the world. It's one of the most popular sports outside of the U.S., and so for someone to think that the best one in the United States is the best in the whole world, it's like you may be in for a rude awakening, because Europe probably has something to say about that. Mexico, Brazil. I mean, there's a lot of really good soccer countries out there. So, we get into the World Cup and the Summer Olympics and everything like that, each year. And there's always a country that comes out head and shoulders better than the U.S. And it's sort of that realization for a lot of people that, we're not the world. We're just a part of it. So, but when it came to Shaun White to me was like kind of how you would look at football, which is that American football played in the U.S. If we were to introduce that as an Olympic event, the U.S. would dominate because they're the only ones that practice it every year. So you build an all-star roster of guys representing America against countries that have assembled teams of guys that have maybe played, exhibition style unofficially and are big fans of it, but they're going to get crushed. And I'm not saying that this is a guarantee. I'm just saying in all likelihood, fish out of water, another country that assembles an American-style football team to compete against a U.S. football team on a world stage would probably get borderline embarrassed. And I know that snowboarding occurs all over the world, but here in the U.S., it's, again, one of those activities, one of those sports that is incredibly popular. And for Shaun White, when he went to the Olympics the first time, like, he was the name in snowboarding. And I know that because I used to be a snowboarder, and I remember Shaun White was the guy. He was the guy you wanted to be. The first year that they introduced snowboarding in the Olympics, he was not part of it. There was guys like Danny Cass, who was a great snowboarder. He got the silver medal. The U.S. won gold and silver that first time, and I think that was in Salt Lake City. And then introduced Shaun White, and you're like, wow, this guy is the best, and he's about to go and represent our country. Like, things are going to change. But he did it well, and he was the flying tomato, and he was just insane. He was the best at what he did, and I truly believed that there wasn't going to be anyone that could go toe-to-toe with him on his best day. And then the next Olympics happened, and it was not the same story, different chapter for Shaun White. He did not win the gold, and it was weird because it was one of those kind of humbling experiences where you think somebody is like invincible, unbeatable, and then you find out that they are, in fact. But then last night, story of redemption, he does one of the best runs that we've ever seen for that sport, takes home the gold. I mean, this guy pulled off the trick during his last run in the half pipe that earlier last year put him in a hospital. He didn't even know if he was going to make it to the Olympics. And so, mad respect to Shaun White. I wish I would have seen the whole thing unfold, but I just thought it was really ironic that here I am talking about how, I'd really like to get into certain things of the Winter Olympics, but it's so hard to track down which events to watch and whatnot. And then I get off the show, and Shaun White is having himself a day or a night with the snowboarding half pipe, and it's the talk of the social media. So I thought that was funny, but other than that, though, women's curling still hands down one of the best Olympic events ever. Not just Winter Olympics, but yeah. Other sports. Let's see here. So Raiders informed kicker Sebastian Janikowski today that they do not plan to bring him back for the 2018 season. That's an 18-year run with the Raiders coming to an end. That is a hell of a career. That's like Peyton Manning-esque for a kicker. We just got done talking to a kicker in Cody Barber. For some perspective, Adam Schefter tweeted, here's how long Sebastian Janikowski has been around the Raiders. Al Davis drafted him number 17 overall in the 2000 NFL draft. Then head coach John Gruden favored wide receiver Sylvester Morris or running back Sean Alexander. Morris played 1 season in Kansas City. Alexander played 9 years and was the NFL MVP for Seattle in 2005. That is one hell of a way back Wednesday. I mean, my God. Now, he is probably one of the only guys, when you think of that position, that you're like, that's first ballot Hall of Famer right there, Janikowski. I mean, the dude is unreal, and he did not have a great season last year, didn't even play a lot last year because of an injury. So I really hope he's got one more season left in him, but I don't know. I mean, he was the guy for the Raiders for a long time. If you had a fantasy team and you needed a kicker, you wanted Janikowski. And so with that, I think we're going to try Mr. Gonzales one more time, so don't go anywhere. We've got more of The Fan Show coming up right after this. You're listening to The Fan Show, your home for all things football and nonsense. My special guest tonight, Farouk. Farouk, welcome.
He's no expert, but here's the thing. Football and nonsense is what he brings. Sports talk with a twist. It's The F.A.N. Show.
Do you know him as Kevin from the League? It is none other than very funny Steve Ranazisi.
99% of the population doesn't know who I am, but the 1% do. They yell and scream inappropriate things at me in public.
Kyle Ray. Kyle, welcome.
And I was like, wow, I think we just saw the whole Super Bowl, Phyllis. It was like that scene in The Simpsons. Like, why rent the movie? I just saw the best part.
Funny man Brad Williams.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I flew in just for your podcast. I've heard about this podcast. I've heard it's fantastic.
It's Mac and Farva, but they are my special guests tonight. Steve Lemmy, Kevin Heffernan.
I was in Mexico for 10 weeks in a Speedo. Like, that was me going to work. I was putting on a Speedo.
Farva is the most fun to play, and it was a blast to do that again, to do Farva again.
So then the makeup artist had to put Vaseline on your body, right?
Yeah.
And then put the powdered sugar on top of that. Is your name really Richard Siemens?
Listen live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night on Spreaker.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. All right, I am back, and once again without a guest, but it's okay. I got a hold of him. He said he just got out of his meeting. He's going to call me in a couple of minutes, so that means that I've got a few moments here, time to kill, and we still got, over 10 minutes left to the show, so we'll be fine. We'll be fine. I'm excited to talk to Mr. Gonzales about the indoor game in the Cedar Rapids Titans, so I apologize to all of you for the commercial breaks and whatnot, but I want to get to know these guys. I want to get excited about, what's going on this season in the indoor game. A lot of new faces, a lot of young talent. Should be a good time. But don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's episode or any other episode of The Fan Show, you can always subscribe to the podcast, and you have several choices of how you would like to consume said podcast. Pick your favorite flavor of sports talk, football, and nonsense on either iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, or iTunes. Click the subscribe button. That way you're never out of the loop with The Fan Show. You'll be up to date on all the latest happenings in the world of sports, media, and pop culture, wrestling, and everything else that we talk about on this show. Got a lot of stuff in the works right now outside the tour, so that's always exciting stuff. Don't forget that tonight at midnight, this is your last chance to vote for The Fan Show for Best Media for the Spokane Entrepreneurship Awards. Those will be happening tomorrow night. I will come home, do the show, and I will put my best suit forward, and we're going to go to an awards gala and see if I had what it takes to win Best Media. But to those of you that have voted and shared and put up with my relentless reposting and resharing, I thank you. I really do. You guys are the best. And if I do win, it's going to be because of you. And don't think that I will forget that, because I won't. But you guys are awesome. And if you enjoy the show and want to be kept in the loop outside of the episodes and all the things that we do here, then make sure that you are following us on one form of social media or another. Twitter at FanShowOfficial, Instagram, The Fan Show, Facebook.com/FanShow, Fan Show Official. We have a Snapchat, but Snapchat got an update that everybody's mad at, so I haven't really done anything on the Snapchat lately. But, of course, the home base for all things football and nonsense is thefanshow.com. And like I said, it was going to get quiet on there. And I mentioned last night that there was the Raw Rewind, which I was really excited about. And then I realized that I could only do that realistically for about 2-3 weeks before my schedule changed, and I was going to have to wake up at 4 a.m. to go to work and be there at 5, and to try to stay up till 11 o'clock to watch Raw, 10 o'clock to watch SmackDown, and then, write a summary on them was just going to be too tough. So probably every Wednesday we'll do a This Week in WWE, and I will take the time to watch the DVR'd versions of those shows and give you my thoughts. Can't guarantee that they'll be the best thoughts ever, but they will be thoughts nonetheless. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your Valentine's Day and spending it with, just spending it however you want. And like I said, I'm not anti-Valentine's Day. I just don't understand the emphasis on making sure that you did something the day. Like, there's no Santa Claus, so it's not like you're trying to tell your kids that, this is the day that he makes his trip around the world to deliver the presents to good little boys and girls. That doesn't happen. I mean, the Cupid, I got nothing for Cupid. But, the Easter Bunny, that's another thing. And I get it. This is more of an adult holiday than it is for kids. But they sure do make enough stuff out there for kids to get involved with Valentine's Day. It's a day for you to find out if someone has a crush on you or if you're alone with the feelings going one way and nobody picking up when you're laying down. So it's a funny day. It really is, but it's whatever. I will celebrate tomorrow on Valentine's Day. Half price candy, chocolates, flowers, and teddies. Yeah, it's the way to do it. And do it how you're going to do it. If you guys want to tweet at me everything that's going on tonight as far as your fancy dinner and getting dressed up and the chocolates or whatever you got for Valentine's, go ahead. At Fan Show Official. Tweet me. I'm fine with that. But, I'm not jealous. I'm not even mad. I got my special day tomorrow, the 15th. And tomorrow is the awards night, so I'll get to maybe celebrate twice. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to check in with Mr. Gonzales here one more time, and we'll see what's going on with him. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back, and joining me for the final spot here on the Fan Show is a member of the Cedar Rapids Titans. Just got there. It is Herbert Gonzales III. How you doing, man?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good out here right now in Iowa.
Yeah, it was you were part of the dispersal draft, and then you found out that you were going to go to Cedar Rapids. How did you take the news?
It was a blessing. Everything. I had set up my options to go to Bloomington and everything. It looked like a good situation. Some things happened. The program ended up falling out, and I got drafted in the second round, first pick by Cedar Rapids. And like I said, it's all a blessing. I can't ask for a better opportunity to be with Coach Marvin Jones. He's been in the NFL forever. He was an amazing linebacker. I play nose, so. What better man to teach me how to play nose when that was what he was behind the whole time.
This is a great point, which we're going to talk about Marvin here in a minute because we actually brought him up on last night's episode. But one thing I wanted to touch on real quick is that, I was excited to see you in Bloomington, and I know that in the world of sports and media today, like there's players finding out they got traded via Twitter, So for you guys, though, to be in the indoor game. Like when everything was going on with the legal stuff, and then West Michigan and Bloomington, and then this dispersal draft. Like, how much information were you guys getting up until the point that you found out that you had a new home in Cedar Rapids?
Oh man, it's been a roller coaster. That's why I'll leave it like that. We were there. I got told we were going to have a season. I arrived there, and I'm a player that I'm big time about arriving early, seeing how the city is, getting there. That way I'm not a last minute guy. I really try to take this professionally.
Yeah.
And like I said, the whole time I'm thinking we're going to play, we get there, they're getting us our physicals, and my head coach pretty much, he's kind of out of the circle pretty much, and he doesn't know what's going on. He's telling us, look, we might have a season, we might not. There's a lawsuit going on, and I'm pretty much at that point just waiting there to say, well, what's up, coach? And then the hardest part that was going on is I had teams that I wanted to communicate to prior, and I couldn't communicate to them because I was under IFL contract. So the teams that I had offers with, or that weren't interested in me before I signed to Bloomington, I couldn't even speak to. Wow. So I was at a point where I was pretty much on a holding list where I couldn't do nothing about it. And I'm literally sitting there begging the commissioner, calling the commissioner, blowing his phone up saying, look, sir, can you at least reach out to us so we can get a release, something in that matter. And then finally we ended up getting word that, we weren't going to have the season, and that they're really thinking about having an expansion draft. So, a dispersal. So when he decided to disperse like us into teams, I didn't know who I was going to go to. You know what I mean? So at that point, I was really up for any team that wanted me. I'm a player that's in the IFL right now that's trying to make it, bigger and better. I'm always trying to be better and get better at my game and sharpen my tools. So really, I'm ready for any team that wanted me. And thank God that the Cedar Rapids called me, and we got our helmets and stuff after I got here. And, I'm finally getting in the role of things and finally really going through plays, not just running sprints. So it's been definitely it's been a roller coaster, but an amazing blessing to be able to at least get picked up and not just be left alone.
Yeah, it's something that I really can't relate to on that kind of level. And I know that there were so many people that there was rumors, there was people talking, this was up in the air, this was happening, and then this wasn't happening. And I can't imagine for you as a player what that would be like. But you're one of the first players that I've talked to since the fallout that was actually like directly affected by everything that happened. So you're one of the lucky ones that ended up with a team. But I mean, before you knew that you were going to Cedar Rapids and that there was going to be this dispersal draft, like, who are you the most mad at during the whole situation, I guess?
I can't be mad at my head coach because, these organizations are ran by GMs and owners. So
yep.
I can't get mad at him for the situation. So if I would say I was mad at anyone, it would probably be like the owner. Or, probably most likely the owner, because, some of us players committed to a program like Bloomington who was in the CIF, and they hadn't been in the IFL since a couple of years back. Now, a couple of years back, they were successful in the IFL, but they hadn't been there in a while. So you had players like me. We had players like T. Shepard, who was going to be there as well, guys that were veteran players that were here to build a program up and have something that was going to be incredible. We had a whole squad of people that we brought, guys from the CFL, NFL, everything. So when I'm going through this, it was really, really, really shocking that something like this would happen so close to the season. I thought, like, if we weren't going to have a season with a team or something, I would figure it was going to happen in December or November, something like that we would be able to react and be able to do something about. And like I was getting back to, I was so committed to this program, I would have liked, an owner to come out and talk to me, because
at the end of the day, we're here for his brand. We were here to represent the Bloomington Edge. And that's what we were there for, and we weren't getting the communication that I really was wishing for. And I say that because, some of us had more than one team to go to. So we chose your program to help your city out, to help this team out, to build something up. And if I was mad at anyone, it would probably be the owner.
And that's understandable. I mean, communication is key in so many things, and obviously you're talking about dealings with something on a professional level and that they need to be handled professionally. When you heard about the lawsuit, were you mad at the CIF for not giving teams an ultimatum? Because, I mean, the IFL went after Sioux Falls and Wichita saying play for us or not at all, and that was months ago. And now, 2 months before kickoff, the CIF comes at you guys and says, we don't want you to play at all. And that doesn't just affect the owner. Like, that's you guys, that's the players and everything. And I couldn't even imagine what that would be like to hear about.
Yeah, it goes down to this, the CIF has been competing with the IFL for a while right now. So, anytime I would say an owner of an organization that has competition has a time to get ahead or win, they're probably going to do it. And that is what the CIF did to the teams that had joined the IFL, and it was completely wrong. It was completely wrong because these organizations, the IFL and the CIF, are not made just for players to play arena ball. These are really right now the only developmental leagues out there for the NFL or CFL. So with all that being said, we're here to be, trying to better ourselves the whole time. And it almost was like the CIF said, you know what? Our money's more important than any of these players right now.
Wow.
Because if they didn't believe that, they wouldn't have done what they did. They knew what they were doing. They knew if they put this lawsuit in, they knew there was a strong chance that they were going to win. And they knew that it was a strong chance that two teams with 8 offensive starters, 8 defensive starters, which comes out to a total of 32 starters, potential starters, were going to lose jobs. And they did it because I believe they were trying to take some of the players too. They were trying to knock the credibility of the IFL and take some of these players. Because if these players don't have a team, well, guess where Herbert was? Cheeto. I'm over here wondering if I might play in the CIF because I don't know if the IFL is going to release me.
Wow.
So that's where I was at in that aspect.
Yeah, and I talked with a former IFL player, wide receiver of the Green Bay Blizzard, Markel Willis, and I said, there's a lot of inconsistency at this level, and I said I was worried about the younger players and if this would sour them on the experience so much that, they feel like it's not even worth it, but, where else are they going to go? And he said that, you get kind of used to the inconsistency, but this was definitely one of the worst off seasons that he could remember. So I felt for you guys. I really did.
Definitely. I don't think there's been a time in IFL history that 2 teams were removed from a schedule a week before, 2 weeks to a week before they were going to play.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't even know how it happens. That's how crazy it sounds to me. That you have people locked into contracts and you're able to completely throw that away. And like I said, not have nothing set up besides the dispersal draft. So it's a blessing that the commissioner decided to do that, because if he didn't do that, you're talking about 32 starters automatically released. That's not including backups, special teams, anything like that. So you're talking about it's over 32 starters. It's 32 starters with a total of 60-plus players. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you're talking about 60 people were losing jobs. And if it wasn't for the IFL giving those, the dispersal draft for certain players, those guys would have just been calling on the phone hoping they could get into camp while camp's just starting. You're talking about this happened right when camp started. You know how hard it is to jump onto a team right when camp's starting?
Yeah,
they
I
already
can imagine.
have their set players.
Yeah.
You're signing your contract prior, and then see what's going on even to an extent is you got guys in the draft like coaches and head coaches and GMs that were drafting players that they had no chance of playing them.
Wow.
And that to me is absurd. I think it's absurd to have coaches drafting players that they weren't even thinking about playing. They were thinking about holding them to trade or to hold their rights for 2 weeks. I have a best friend that happened to come with me to Bloomington, which was Rusman Nikosevic, which was also my defensive end from college, 6'4", 265, 4'6" defensive end, rookie year, who has literally been held this whole time.
Wow.
He's barely going to be getting his release today. And there's no refuse to report, nothing. He didn't refuse to report. They just barely released him today. How are you releasing someone a week before a game? And you never had intent of playing him. I don't know. I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy that you're holding players just for another team can't pick them up when this is supposed to be a developmental league.
Yeah.
So you're not really developing any players if you're holding people not to play.
Yeah.
So, like I said, those are the players I feel for. At least my team was willing to sign me instantly and have that set up. Other teams, you're talking about people were getting RTR'd, refused to report, people were getting released. It was a mess. Then you had guys that were not signing contracts for teams, and they were still holding their rights. So they weren't on these teams, and they were still holding their rights the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
mess.
what I'm saying. Like, there's players like that who's one of my best friends who's not even on a team right now. And you're talking about he had offers from teams. He's not even on a team right now because he hasn't been released, so no one's been able to talk to him. When you're not released and you're under another team's contract, you're not allowed to talk to anyone through IFL contract rule.
Wow, I couldn't even imagine, but hopefully everything works out with them. Obviously, you're in good hands now with the Cedar Rapids Titans after all the chips have fallen and the dust has settled. But you're under the head coaching of Marvin Jones, one of my favorite guys out there, and we talked about him last night on the show actually because Cedar Rapids opens up against Nebraska, and I had Marshall Hart, offensive line coach of Nebraska, on last night. We both agreed that he's probably one of the top 3 most intimidating people in the IFL.
He's pretty intimidating, a man that was that successful in NCAA college football at Florida State Seminoles and went to the NFL and transitioned the same way, being just as good and lasting for double-digit years. It's crazy.
Was that the first thing that popped up in your mind when you found out you were going to Cedar Rapids? Was like, hell yeah.
Oh, definitely. That was the only thing I thought of, is that I'm playing for Marvin Jones, a guy that's been there. You're talking about this guy is not only coached and helped coach in the NFL as an intern and done his job there. He played in the NFL and dominated at it.
Yeah.
Not just a mediocre player, a dominating player, which means that normally those type of men, when we grow up, you think they're superheroes.
Yep.
You think these type of guys, when you see him, he's going to be 8 foot tall and look like King Kong. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I meet him and everything, it's almost unreal to be able to have this man as a coach because of what he's done. I have so much respect for players and what they do for the game. You're talking about this man, what he's done for the game at the college level, his jersey being retired at the Florida State Seminoles, which is, a venue that is incredible. His number being retired there, and then him being that guy in the NFL, and like what I'm going to say is going to happen, potential Hall of Famer. It's unheard of. You don't meet those type of people every day. You're talking about you're talking about, as an athlete, me being a Division I player, me playing professionally. This is the first time in my life that I've legitimately met a potential Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
And not only at a regular level, I'm meeting them at a personal level and at a coaching level. So it's great. It's amazing. That's all I thought about when I was coming to Cedar Rapids.
So my last question for you then is a two-parter. First part of it is that does your guys' belief in Marvin Jones as a head coach go and the respect that you have for him as a coach go beyond his NFL credentials, and what's going to make Cedar Rapids a competitor this season?
The biggest thing on that is, I'll tell you just like this. Every team that I've been on that's been successful and won games, I've been on undefeated seasons in high school. I went on great, little runs in college, 7-4 bowl eligibility, Division I, all that good stuff. And what's going to do it is really buying into what he has to teach us, and he's teaching us well, and really believing in ourselves that, the Cedar Rapids ain't the Cedar Rapids they used to be. Last year they were bad, but if people don't remember, 2 years before that, they were running the IFL.
Yep.
So with a big old ex-man, Xavier Jackson and the crew, they're running the IFL. So I believe that as long as we go into practice and do what we got to do, and we continue to have the players that come in here and are successful and we gel together, we'll be able to compete with any team in the IFL. There's no doubt in my mind.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm glad you found a good home with somebody like Marvin Jones, who you genuinely believe in and respect on all levels of the game. But Herbert, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I know we're going to talk more this season because this has been a lot of fun. So I will see you on the road at some point this IFL season. But, hey, best of luck to you and the rest of the guys, that are kind of your friends that are out in the wind. I wish them the best. But keep in touch, and we're going to have a fun IFL season this year.
Most definitely, sir. Like I said, let's get these W's here at Cedar Rapids. And I'm trying to make an impact and be a huge part of this team and do some things that people haven't really seen in the IFL at the nose position. And that's just the honest truth. I feel I could definitely help my team out, be a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. You enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, you too. Stay blessed. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.
And that was Herbert Gonzales III of the Cedar Rapids Titans, and that's going to do it for our show. Went a little long tonight, but hey, it was well worth it. Great information from both guests. So don't forget, tomorrow night is the big night. It's the awards ceremony immediately following the last episode of this week. And then next week, even more IFL players and coaches as we get ready for the official kickoff Friday, the 23rd, Cedar Rapids Titans and Nebraska Danger. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, best of luck to you and yours. Go Niners, and remember, it's all fun and games until you butt fumble. Good night!
Do you remember the time that Mark Sanchez ran into his player's butt? That was funny sports.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I love the Fan Show.